Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the last evening of the Buddhist Studies Center 2024 Summer Session. We will have a 45-minute Dharma talk by Reverend Dr. Kenji Akahoshi, followed by a break. Following that, there will be an open discussion. We will open this evening's session with Dexter Marr from Hawaii Betsuin, who will be our MC. Dexter?
Thanks, Caroline, and welcome everybody to our closing session of the 50th Annual Buddhist Study Center's Summer Session. In gratitude for these precious moments of learning and insight, we'll start our final session with a short worship service that includes the Vandana Tisarana, Sucha chanting of Jusege, and Nembutsu. Our officiant is Bishop and Interim BSC Director, Reverend Toshiyuki Umatani. The Vandana Tisarana can be found on page 7 of your red service book if you aren't familiar with it. Bishop?
Snamanda, 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 Snamanda. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Gacchami Dhamman Saranam Gacchami Samgam Saranam Gacchami. I go to the
Jusege can be found on page 55 of your red service book. Te
人少年上映主論行死ぬ無常道一天にし人力現代公不詳無才道少女三組五歳主役な回避知恵へ滅死根門閉塞小悪道通断で主も放送上万道いよろしっぽ日が主樹期天候不下一種解放像五世苦毒法上大主従説法ししく供養一切部即習徳法願命信条魔徳意三概要女文無下知通断未不詳願学営利投資最小層志願略国家大戦の感動国書天に統一妙見Please all rise for the Nembutsu. Namo Snamanda, Snamanda, Snamba.
Thank you, Bishop Umatani, for leading our service. Give us just a few minutes while we close the altar. Okay, I think we're ready to start. I hope you all did last night's homework on what the benefits of Shin Buddhism are for you. Okay. If not, this is a little reminder so you can prepare in the next few minutes. Okay. As a former Protestant Christian, the biggest personal benefit for me of Jodo Shinshu is that it's a spiritual path without fear. There's, the teachings of, no hell, no final judgment, is a big change from the Christian paths and many actually of the other Buddhist paths. But more about that later. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, our sensei is Reverend Kenji Akahoshi. Kenji Sensei is a retired head minister of the Buddhist Temple of San Diego, retired in 2021. He now leads the ministerial support pillar for our Dharma Forward campaign and gives classes for ministers' assistants at the Buddhist Churches of America. He also had recent articles in Tricycle Buddhist Magazine and Lion's Roar. And he's also writing a book which interprets Shin in a way that's relevant to the 21st century America. As a dentist by profession, Reverend Akahoshi earned a degree from the University of California, San Francisco Dental School before finishing his master's from the Institute for Transpersonal Psychology or Spiritual Psychology, and then a master's from the Institute for Buddhist Studies for his ministerial path. Tonight's topic is being sacred in the profane, being whole, not holy. Let's thankfully receive his presentation tonight. Reverend Akahoshi.
Thank you, Dexter. I thought we would start off first with finishing up some things from yesterday, and we had some questions from people online. So, Dexter, why don't you read your own question?
Did I do that last night? We recently, the Mission of Hawaii sponsored a seminar recently with the minister, the head minister of Tsukiji Betsuin in Tokyo, about a rebranding project that they started over 5 years ago to transform the identity of that temple, in Tokyo. They used a business approach and skilled leadership, to move the needle there. And that's something that we may need, if we want to, refresh our temples. We currently lead the promotion of Shin Buddhism to each individual temple, and sometimes, that conflicts. I don't know if you have a comment about how BCA, has a more strategically connected approach or not.
Okay. Yeah, I think we do need to be, rebranding. I'm not used to that kind of language, but what I've been putting forward is that we're reading material, and I keep making the difference between 13th century Japan and 21st century America. And just in those words, we're talking about a difference of culture and a difference of time period. So the culture we know has its difficulties in bridging the divide of the ocean. But the other thing is difference of time, and that the things we're translating are written material, written to people who lived in an environment where the earth was considered to be flat. And we talked about being in this cosmic age where the internet is, part of our reality. And so that's one reason I call the work I'm doing a contemporary view, because we do have a different view of reality. that with the advent of many things and our knowledge, we just see the whole cosmos as being different. And so what I'm curious about, as I said, I'm writing a book about this, and it's I'm editing it all the time. And the reason I edit things or that I find that some things work and some things don't. Some of the things that are presented here are new, but many of the things that I'll be talking about in this attracting new members are things that have worked at some temples, and it's comprehensive. It involves 6 areas, but much of it is how we're presenting the Dharma. It's not that the Dharma is questionable. It's the methods. And again, it's this whole difference of culture and time. And so I am curious to hear, people's impressions. One thing is that I see most of us here are over 39 years of age. Okay. And, I'm a little over that too. And it's taking decades for us to understand things. And then for some guy from California to come in and say these weird things, it's very hard to get in one swallow. And so I look at these changes taking place over a period of about 100 years. So I plan to check back every 20 years or so. In other words, the reason I continue with this is the response I get are from new people or younger people. And these things have worked in San Diego, in San Jose as a layperson, and other places. As I said, I've been doing retreats since 1998 with actually different types of activities. I have these things I do. We talked about a vision quest that we did with high school seniors, but on these retreats, they work on a below the intellect level. They're an experiential thing. So I would like to hear from you. And actually, I have, and we'll be getting into a question before we start tonight's lecture on, what your thoughts are in how we promote Shin Buddhism. So as far as BC, we did write this attracting new members thing. What I find encouraging is that lay people continue to say they understand putting words into more common, familiar language. And it really is not my intention using these phrases that and I've done that here, to lower the importance of Amida, but to use different words. And as you'll notice, I'm using words like effort of others and life energy. These things are more familiar. And from that, we could talk about Amida. But when we talk about Amida and see Amida as a human figure or image in the altar, many people do not relate to that. And so this is what I find my work is to kind of bridge that. And that's a reason for some of my definitions. And I think some of the things I've been saying, and I'll reiterate that as we get into our discussion, I try to reinforce the reasons for the terms I use and the way I use them by either science or reinterpreting the language. And so, yes, I think we need to, I guess, rebrand, if that's the word. But, and this, I guess what I'm saying is it works on younger people or those who are not so familiar with what we've grown up with. Because again, here we are, some of us have been associated with Shin Buddhism for 50, 60, 70 years. It's very hard to kind of switch with ideas that seem quite different. But for younger people or for people who are not familiar, this kind of makes sense because that's the world they live in. So the next question is.
Ronnie's asking, at Hoibetsu, when I went the first time with the late Reverend Fujitani and his family, and everyone made me feel welcome, and I joined the BWA and became a member.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Well, not really a question, I think a comment about, connecting.
I think that's the importance of us connecting with people personally. And it really doesn't have to be a minister. And this is part of my point on what we'll discuss. So I had asked last night, what benefits each of us may have gotten from Shin Buddhism. And we may share it here, but the more important part is to share it with, if we have children or a friend, because that's what people are open to listening to. The benefits, why are you here? As I asked at one point, why are you here? And why are other members of your family or other friends not here? So can we, start with that?
Jen looks like she wants to go first.
It's not that I want to, it's just that I'm not shy, and maybe if I start, that encourages others to go. Benefits for me. Well, first, I'll just go straight, never mind. Okay, so you talked a lot about receiving, right? So I receive a lot, and I've received besides being welcomed and being a part of and all of that, I've received education and skills by coming here. So I learned a little Ikebana. I become a CLMA, learn chanting, learn what things are, and besides the history, and then delving into like Shoshinge and the meaning and other things like that. I received from being a Shin Buddhist, being exposed and being able to come to the summer sessions, to online classes, conferences, conventions, all of those. I find those to be benefits as well. I've received being able to meet and get to know some really fabulous people and some amazing ministers. So, and you get to be added to that list. So, I have favorites. Dr. Ken Tanaka, I do, but there's always, especially these summer sessions, we get to meet some really, one was even evangelical about Shin Buddhism. I forget if he was from Kathmandu, I think, a minister from Kathmandu.
Yeah.
So we get exposed to these. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known about it. I wouldn't have come. I wouldn't. So that's really special to me. That's definitely a benefit. Sangha, being a part of a Sangha, which is also part of many Sanghas, because I feel like I know people from all sorts of Sanghas now, and ours. Being a part of a temple, having a temple home, that feels really good. Being involved in helping with things there, social events. You talked before about the food. I'm going to say yes. The food is social time, and food is definitely a benefit. And I think it's a necessary one, because we really get to talk and be with each other around those things. I guess there's probably more, but I'll stop there and maybe people can chime in.
Okay, let's have at least 2 or 3 of you speak up. So who's ready? Dorothy can always contribute.
I have a minor trivial comment. We had a conversational Japanese class at Mo'ili'ili Honganji for a few years. That it doesn't, well, we don't have that right now, but our teacher is a member from Osaka, and he told us that that W in the Honganji is something that was started in either America or Hawaii, and that the proper way to pronounce it is Honganji. And also, it seemed to me, if you wrote it in hiragana or katakana, there isn't really that sound. But I talked to him later, and he explained to me that in old Japan, the language that was before the Meiji, there were these changes, and even the alphabet was changed. So there was a sound like gua. But now it's interesting, because if you go by Tsukiji Honganji, they use a W in there. And it's being used everywhere now. But I think we still pronounce it Honganji, except if you don't know, you try to pronounce it W. Anyways, that's kind of trivia, but I was wondering about it, and I learned something.
Yeah. Thank you.
So you get a benefit of understanding semantics. Okay. Who's next? Dave.
So this is kind of related to what Jennifer said when she mentioned opportunity to serve. I think that's what you said. I was kind of paying attention to some tech, but I really do find that that's it's nice to feel useful and to have your skills put to use in the service of something outside yourself. And of course, you know, our temples need a lot of help. So there's so much opportunity. And I do think this is one area where we can kind of by matching people who have skills, since it feels good to put them to use and we have a lot of need, there's a lot of opportunity there. If we can somehow reframe it from being such a chore to something that makes you feel good by serving. And also at the same time, I realize I'm getting a lot of benefit in like developing skills that I can apply wherever, you know, in my life too. So I recognize there's a little bit of a selfish component to helping at the temple too, but yeah, skill development and putting your skills to use.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's one point I'd like to make with this balance that as Shin Buddhists, we're not going for an ideal, you know, talk about that in reference to this, in that there's always an ego component, which is fine with Shinran's description of clouds and light beneath the clouds. So unlike some other sects who are trying to really diminish the ego, which I said psychologically speaking is quite impossible, we work with our ego and there is a balance. So, yes.
How about one more?
Charlie.
Coming to the temple gave me a time to be quiet and really listen. And I feel that over the years, my mind has changed and my attitude has changed. Before, I felt so much angrier, more impatient. But over the years, I've seen that I'm not as reactive as before. Yeah.
Yes. Hey, thank you.
Okay.
Other thoughts?
One more?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Dorothy on a encore.
The teachings are so encouraging, and the Sangha is such a perfect place that we are so kind, and it teaches us, and we model it also, so that even if someone is making a mistake, or they're not familiar, or they're still learning, we also see them grow. With all that encouragement and acceptance that we have, people actually grow. I was mentioning to Reverend Akahoshi that some of his people at San Diego became minister assistants, and they seemed so new in the beginning, but they actually, you can see how they grow over time.
Yeah. We have two of the certified ministers' assistants who are going on for both Tokudo and perhaps even beyond that. But so, yeah, Terry,
I was listening to Jen and I went, you know, I came back to temple for a very selfish reason. You know, I grew up in the temple from the time I was in the 6 years old. When the temple opened again in our small town on the Big Island. Until then, we went to an Episcopalian church without my parents, just the kids went. And then the temple opened. And then, you know, so it was very helpful to me to know some of the teachings. And then I got busy. I graduated, went to college, started working. Then when I had my kids, I went back to temple because I wanted them to have it.
Mm-hmm.
you know? And I just, because I knew that life sometimes is very difficult, and I always found that the teachings were could help settle you and help you face adversity and give you resilience and everything. And that's what I wanted for my kids. And so that's why I came back, and I think it's working. I think it's very helpful.
Yeah, thank you. Now, these benefits that we've been sharing, thank you for sharing them, with this group. This is what I think we might be doing with a friend or our family. Because I know we're in situations now where, there are fewer of us doing more work. And yet it's this thing where we might be talking about the benefits. I was talking to some people about my father, and the only two things he said was take care of your family and don't be afraid of work. And he'd come home from work and he was always smiling. And he was a clerk in a supermarket for most of the time. He had his own green grocery, but after the war, he did work for other people. But it is this attitude. And the things I've learned from many, especially ministers, was not so much what they said, but how they lived. I don't know if you know Reverend Kusada. I think some of the ministers do. This little man who came from Japan, and initially I thought he was Reverend Eidman's manservant. He's about less than 5 feet, I'm sure less than 100 pounds. And he was wheeling this wheelchair with the Reverend Eidman, who's probably 250 pounds. I was his dentist. Kusada says Reverend Eidman would come in. He'd grab Reverend Eidman by the belt and put him from the wheelchair into the dental chair. And he was an Aikido master along with many other things. But he taught, and he knew chanting and many other skills, but it was the way he lived. And he inspired probably a dozen of, people of my generation to become ministers. So it's how we live, but it's also verbally, talking about the benefits we have. And again, I think for our generation, we find that uncomfortable, but this is what I want to get into here. And whoops. Oh, is there one?
We have one
Okay,
contribution
we'll do this.
chat.
Yeah. Okay, we'll do this and then go to the next.
Okay, so Barani says, my joining Hawaii Bet's win is to satisfy my interest in learning about Shin Buddha's belief and the practices with the opportunity to connect with many nice members. There are various opportunities to serve the public community together. The bonus is to be able to discuss the teachings of Shinran with many ministers to gain new perspectives.
Right. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so yeah, and the ability to talk to many ministers and lay people really opens up our view of life so that we just don't have one view that we had from our parents or close friends, but we have a wide variety and from different age groups, and can really see how Shin Buddhism has lasted over 800 years. But anyway, this is the question we asked last night, and I want to get into this a little further because this can be viewed as something that, well, as I said, I talk about some things that seem to be contradictory to what's been said. And so I want to reiterate this, Honganji, whether it's with the G or not, we're the temple of the primal vow. And what's the meaning of that? And to me, it is this mythology that we need, because if we really think about the reality we know on the conventional level, we may have 100 years on this planet, and we kind of realize that. But what is 100 years when we realize that there's a bigger reality of 14 billion years? Why are we struggling so hard? It's all going to go. We're only have 100 years of life here. And again, a scientist will tell us, how the stars were formed and nebulas and all these other things. And that's fine. But are they saying why we got here? There's some scientists are speculating how life began, whether it began with a lightning strike or out of some volcano, something triggered something where life could replicate itself, where before it couldn't. And they say that happened about 3.5 million years ago, billion years ago. And then, well, the planet is about 4.5 billion. But again, these are numbers that are hard to think about. But we have a mythology that says there's concern, there's compassion in the universe told to us by this mythology, that this, told to us in this myth of a king giving that up, becoming a Buddha, doing the work so that all of us can be awake. And that's the point I'll be making today. So how does this happen? How do people wake up? Are we sitting around, if we chant louder, maybe Dhammakata will come and wake the other people up? When is he going to come wake my kids up or the neighbors? How does Dhammakata work? He's Amida Buddha. Again, I'm kind of a scientist. How does this thing work? Is it magic? Is that what we're talking about? I float this thought that maybe it goes through us. I use that term, life energy. Dhammakata became Amida Buddha. Amida Buddha, another, and it could be a scientific term, light and life energy. And where is that? We got it from our parents and grandparents, etc. And now I'll read something later that affirms that. And it animates a body. The body will be, in a sense, gone in 100 years, but this life energy, and that goes through people. Is that how we awaken others? Or do we just kind of wait for this, imaginary spirit of Dhammakata? Do people have ideas about that?
Well, I guess, kind of my understanding of it is, according to the story, Pure Land is empty. They're here. They're here within us all, to guide us to, reduce suffering in this world today. And so, that's what it's happening. That's the light that is emanating, but it's to help us, make this world the Pure Land. Right.
That's one of the things that I question. And I'm being radical about this, but very true. Where is this Pure Land? We call in the Buddhas from the 10 quarters. Where were they? San Jose, I said, are they in Milpitas, which is a suburb, or are they from, one of the off islands? My thought is that this life energy is always here, but we're asleep. We are unaware. And when we chant Samboge or, other things, we're waking up. But life energy is here. It's within each one of us. Namo Amida Butsu. I am part of life energy. Not because of my, good things I've done, but because I've received this. So that is a different way of thinking things. And this is what I think younger people look at, or people who are unfamiliar, because the people, we have a couple of my wife's friends who come to some of my video things. And I think Dorothy knows them because she's online, but Jane and Joan are Methodists, or they grew up in the Methodist church, and they like coming to the thing because they say it makes sense. And I have other friends who do that. And so people with very little background in Buddhism who don't have kind of the burden of all these things that we've learned for decades say, oh, this kind of makes sense, that there is this spirit or whatever energy, and it is within us. Now, I know it gets complicated because there are some Christian versions of things, but this is what I'm asking, that to me, people unfamiliar with a lot of the doctrine resonate with this. And to me, it still stays within the doctrine of Shin Buddhism when you look at it scientifically. And I'll talk about a couple other things a little bit later. So what are people's thoughts on this? How does this life energy, or how does the vow happen? Is it just kind of circulating in the air, or does it work through people? Because that's the other kind of controversial thing in that we hear, Shinran said, I do not know good or evil. And again, it would be more pure if I waited to die and then come back. I think about doing things with my unpure self. There are things going on in the world that I don't think I can just sit around, like the gun violence and, many other things that I'll make a foolish decision with my human thought and actually work toward, we have things like smoking cigarettes in the rooms, having cars pollute the air, water pollution. We reversed a lot of things. And so I'm not going to wait around and let something happen from outside. I think as a human, and I know Dave was saying this, I really like the outdoors, and I'm engaged in some outdoor ecological kinds of things. And yet, if we go, it's not so much by the letter of what's written. I guess it is, but anyway, that looking at things from a contemporary view and taking action as a person, but with a different intention, that it's not for merit, it's not for recognition, but it is this vow in making life easier. And this whole thing about waking up, how is everyone going to wake up? Dhammakata says he'll be the last one, right? A bodhisattva waits till everyone else. Well, we can help along and help others wake up, because there is great value in Shin Buddhism. It's very practical, helps us. It's about balance. It works within political systems. We avoid violence. Yes, we do kill, we lie, cheat, and so forth, but we don't dwell on those things. We try to improve ourselves. So that's one of the things I'm promoting as, you could call it rebranding. I don't know. I don't feel comfortable with that, but just a contemporary view of some of the things we've learned. And I'm finding that, again, younger people or people unfamiliar with this, find that it seems logical and move forward with that. And so I think it is up to people who are on boards and, in senior positions at our temple, look at this, and ministers, and, make these changes. Because, again, my question is, we find that things are not working, and yet we continue to do the same thing. I would ask the question, if these things I'm suggesting don't work, should I continue? After 5 years, maybe I should just quit talking about this. And yet, we've been saying the same thing for 50 years. It hasn't worked. People are leaving, and we continue saying the same thing. And it's very logical that we're in a different environment, a different context. And so the time, the culture is different. We need to learn the language of 21st century America. And as I said, our children, although they may have some ethnically Japanese blood, which is not that critical at this point, they are American, in mind and action. And so that's what we need to appeal to. So anyone want to comment on this? Steve.
I know from experience, young people use the word branding. So rebranding is something the younger generation does use. You mentioned on another evening about Star Wars and Joseph Campbell, understanding the myth, and George Lucas had the right thing in mind. I'm curious because I can't make a direct connection, but looking back on my life, the movie Star Wars certainly attracted me.
Yes.
And I know there've been a number of books and tying in Buddhism with Star Wars. Do you know of any, it doesn't matter what sect of Buddhism, but do you know of any Buddhist churches that on the mainland or anywhere that have really made the effort to tie in Star Wars to attract the younger generations with Buddhism?
Landon Yamaoka of, I guess he belongs to the Palo Alto Temple. Did he get Kyoshi? Yeah. So yes, I think he wrote his thesis on Star Wars. And George Lucas, the author, actually, I had a gal work for me who was his classmate. She talked about little Georgie Lucas, who's now a big star. But they were students of Joseph Campbell. They really promoted him, and they were friends. So him using Amidala in one of the episodes, that wasn't an accident of picking the name. But yeah, and that's what I say, it kind of represents what psychologists would call subpersonalities. These are all different parts. The thing I want to promote is Orange County has something called Everyday Buddhist, and John Turner just wrote an article about Star Wars, but he's very good. So you might look online for Everyday Buddhist, join it. It might be $100 a year subscription or something, but he and others, Mutsumi Wandra is with them, but their minister's assistants and other people write these articles. I think it's weekly or so, and they have a whole educational plan. But anyway, there are these other ways of getting information.
So it's more like just trying to integrate or bring it to the mainstream. But has there been any temple that has seriously used Star Wars as a?
I don't think so. Oh, Charlene, do you?
My teachers at IBS, Reverend Harry Bridge, he uses Star Wars.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, well, I know Jerry Hirano is a big fan of Star Wars. That generation of people. Yeah, we're really, they're at that age when Star Wars was, really important. So yeah, maybe, yeah, I don't know what they're doing at the temples, but that's good. Ellen?
Yeah, I wanted to make a comment, maybe from a more traditional focus, and I had this thought for many, many years in terms of, and I think I was telling you today that I'm old enough to remember Obachang and Jichang in our temples when the minister says something so significant in the teachings that they would burst out, Namandao, Namandao. They felt it. And so, and I think that you made a comment, and I've heard other Dharma teachers talk about, but the essence of Jodo Shinshu is seen in the Myokunin, and it's non-intellectual. They wouldn't, the Myokunin would not be sitting in this audience. They don't need this kind of audience, right? And I think that, and I've said that I've been blessed with having a father-in-law who lived it.
Yeah.
And so it's really by example, and this became kind of interesting. Last Saturday we had this seminar with Trinidad Hunt, and she would take a word like kindness, and then she would ask us, well, how do you make it real? How do you demonstrate kindness? What words do you use for kindness and things like that? And I think that that's what sometimes we miss. How we do these expressions of, but so I really think that that much of the, whatever you want to call it, propagation or passing on the life force is through demonstrated life patterns of people who like Myokunins.
Yeah.
And so I mean sometimes I get very critical when people were equating so much of Star Wars to to these kinds of I don't know what you would call it, so samurai bushido things and those kinds of stuff, which I thought that was kind of really nonsense. So.
Yeah. Well, one of the points I hope I'm making, and again I question this group, I start off with practice, and I find and this has been borne out in people coming into the temple. Gratitude, it works. Thank you works. I know the Dalai Lama says that kindness is, my religion, but it's difficult to know when you're being kind or when someone realizes that. But thank you, that's a response, and that connects you. But it is a practice. Unless you actually practice it, like standing on one foot, it remains a concept. And so I really encourage people to look that first day and practice gratitude in the two forms we had, looking at, how we got here, and then the everyday conveniences and necessities. And by voicing it, it becomes into our conscious mind that, oh, how did this get here? Others have, done this. And that starts to shift our mentality. So anyway, oh, yeah.
Essentially, we had this program, maybe we still do, called Passport,
Mhm.
where we were encouraged to go to the Honolulu district temples. And I did it. And then I realized, well, why don't we go to the Oahu district? So after the Honolulu, I went to the Oahu ones. I went to every single temple. And I realized that many of the temples don't realize what their communities need. Yeah.
Yeah.
And every temple seemed to be different. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I was doing this, I said to people, I'm only doing this for myself. I'm not reporting to Honganji. And then Reverend Umitani at the time said, can you write a report on this? And I thought, oh no, I promise not to, spill the beans on people. But it was very enlightening to see how everyone is different. And so many people, they have their strengths. The website is, right up to date. Other people haven't touched their website for years. And they're so out of touch with what their communities need.
Okay, thank you. Okay, what I'd like to do today is really make the point of why we're saying Namo Amida Butsu. But first, I want to get into a word that may seem a little different, but like a lot of words, jinen, we hear that. What is that? Naturalness. And what is this naturalness? And again, I talk about gratitude, so I want to do a little exercise where we get a sense of what that might mean for us. And my question is, you mentioned passport, but you need a passport, I think, to get into the country. Does anyone have the birth certificate? Can you prove that you were born? Do you have? Anyone have it here? No? Well, I don't know. I'll question. If you don't have a birth certificate, how do I know you're here? So we'll do an exercise. If you don't have a birth certificate, yeah, there might be another way. So, we did that meditation exercise before. Let's just do that, and then we'll take a break right after that. So, if you could sit slightly away from the back of your chair and hold your body erect with your head thinking there's a string tied to your head, so you're facing straight ahead. And then gradually allow your eyes to almost close, but leave a little slit open. And you could put your hands on near your knees. Your feet might be about a foot apart, and you feel somewhat relaxed. And so just taking the breath with your nose and exhale through your mouth. Again, this pose is not that critical. It's just to get us relaxed in a certain way. And then just try to relax, your head, your neck, your shoulder, and think of your arms and hands relaxing your back and your buttocks and your seat. And just try to let everything flow out, your lower legs and your feet. And just breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. In through your nose and out through your mouth. And just be still for a while. And I'm going to ask a question. And as you just kind of are in this position, which is somewhat natural, relaxed, I want to ask you, how is your heart working? How does your heart work? Who or what is controlling your lungs, bringing in the air, exhaling? And who or what is controlling your digestion? What is natural? We might think in our brains, what is natural? But again, an experience of things is that things are going on and we may not be aware of it. We are living naturally. Breathing in, breathing out. Something is working our lungs, our hearts, our muscles, even our brains. You just breathe in and breathe out. And becoming aware of this, what might we do? Might we be grateful for naturalness? That somehow, without even thinking about this, all of these things are going on. And they've been going on for some of us for decades and decades. And so with that, just very slowly allow your thoughts to come back to the room. Be aware of the chair you're sitting in, the people around you. And at your own pace, allow your eyes to open wider and bring your attention back to the room. How did that feel for any of you? You know who was taking care of the heart and the lungs? These things are going on naturally. And Jinan is one of the things that I think we, talk about. And I think this little exercise is something that brings it, to the fore. And so I would recommend at times, not at the break so much, but, afterwards, tomorrow or whatever, you might seek out a natural place, a park, or even if you can, go out into the wilderness or some farmland and just look around with the trees and the, ground, maybe a lake or something. And just, you don't have to get into this meditative posture, but, be quiet and realize all of this and see what emotion comes up for you. And it could be Namandam, thank you. This is naturalness. And then another place might be in the city, urban setting. We have trucks and cars and people and noise. And just think, oh, this is kind of a natural setting too. There's a difference between a human dam and a beaver dam. But we're kind of animals too. We built these things, we're part of the earth. And so we can be as natural in this natural setting. But since as humans, we are part of this, we have an influence as to how it progresses. As I said early on, 100 years ago, we just built things. We tore down trees, plowed lands under, and now we're doing it a little more thoughtfully, realizing that Native Americans really knew what they were doing. We stop fires only to have gigantic fires instead of little forest fires every year. So again, in a human setting, an urban setting or a natural setting, just realize, what's here. And then like our bodies, all these things are happening naturally. And what is our response to that? And we'll have another exercise after this break. So anyone want to make a comment on how that felt? Yeah, Ellen? Yeah.
Well, I always love these meditative exercises, but I would comment on a park in the urban setting. We have a Kakalaka Park, and I would hope that people will go to it. It's built near the beach, on top of the city dump, and the landscape architects made these huge mounds. So once you're in the park, you don't see the urban center at all. It is just a perfect place to sit and take a walk and meditate. I would really highly, I recommend people going there. It's an interesting place, really an interesting park. Thanks.
Anyone else want to comment?
I just had a thought that kind of made me giggle inside. And it was like when you were asking the questions, how is your heart working and how are your lungs working? I thought, good thing I don't have to remember to do that. Can you imagine people would just go bloop, bloop, bloop all the time because we don't think about it. And if you did, would you remember it?
Yeah.
So why don't we take a 10-minute break? Okay, everyone, please start heading back to your seats. Okay, so Purani is saying the positive life energy you receive from each other helps us to connect and move forward as a Buddhist community. The gentle smile of Dalai Lama helps Buddhism to be noticed in Western countries. To attract young people to the temple, perhaps we can have a regular day of the week to invite young people to come have a light meal and talk story, to be able to trust, to comfort each other. Some fun Buddhist music to sing with the guitar or ukulele help them to bring friends each week. The young minister with a fun personality can join them and help answering questions to help them understand the life challenges they face. This is what I learned from my college student about the New Hope method of attracting young people and their family.
Yeah, very nice. Thank you. Yeah, so there are all sorts of different things that we could do. So starting, you'll notice, I think what I did with today's handout, you'll notice it's just a bunch of bullet points. And basically, it's a review of the week. And so we'll quickly go through this. So slide 2, let's see what I have. And, this is kind of a definition that I put up that I think people can relate to. I don't know. It's just that, Buddhism is a process of awakening, of aligning the mind, meaning our whole being, mind, body, spirit, with truth. And as I said, truth is a big thing, but it's trying to align it with what we feel is true. And what the Buddha said is that things are impermanent. Everything's connected. And I'm putting an emphasis on this, all things are connected. The impermanence means, has us realize that our bodies will die, but there is a connection. And then the next slide. So I think this is what Shin Buddhism is about. Again, it's a balance to appreciate what I have. Thank you. To balance the desire for what I don't have. And then it's the shift from please to thank you. And then the next slide is thank you acknowledges the gifts of life. We went through the necessities and conveniences of everyday life. But Namo Amida Butsu acknowledges the gift of life, and that's what we'll attend to for this part today. And then again, the next slide just says, this is my interpretation, contemporary interpretation that Amitabha, Amita use. We use the Japanese word Amida, and in an English translation, I think it could mean life energy or life spirit. We may have to find the right words. Again, words are tricky because they have these associations with its use in other contexts. So whatever that is. And then this is what we did yesterday, that Nembutsu can switch our thoughts from hatred to humility, ignorance to understanding, and greed to gratitude. But that Nembutsu, as Ellen was saying, people in the past would be saying Nammanda. It's not just a sacred, quiet, holy thing. It's people engaging life in all different activities. And that's the story we gave of Cory and his Shichan, that it's used, the family, with groups, sadness, happiness, just saying this is life. And the last slide, ordinary life, we say thank you for their gifts of life, and spiritually, Namo Amida Butsu, the gift of life. And that's what I want to get to tonight. The depth of why we say Nembutsu. Oh, again, on the handout tonight, the first page is about kind of a review. And then the second page is what we're doing tonight. And what I want to really emphasize is this thing that we may be overlooking. Maybe not overlooking, taking for granted. As we said, there are many things like us receiving rather than achieving that was kind of below our radar. When we wake up, we realize, oh, that's more true than me going out there. And trying to achieve brings up all that anxiety and all the things that people seem to complain about, when in truth, things are offered to us. And the other thing, that to think that we're alone, an individual, and the deeper look at this means that we are supported. So on the right side, the gift of life, I don't know if we realize how, although we're told this, how rare, wonderful, and wondrous it is that we have human life. And so I'd like to give us a couple of examples. And Mitsuo Aida has this poem. And I didn't read that here yet, right? I've been doing different things. So I don't know if I repeat myself or I haven't said something, but anyway, by the end of next week, I'm going to be really confused. But anyway, so this is Ida's poem, and I do this often. So anyway, so he says this, and this is a rarity of our life. My father and mother, altogether 2. Parents of my father and mother, altogether 4. Parents of parents, altogether 8. If I count in this way back 10 generations, altogether 1,024. What about back 20 generations? To my surprise, over 1 million. Now, I like math, so I got my calculator. I went back another 10 generations. What about 30 generations back? That would be about Shinran's time, 800 years. And the number I came up with is 1 billion. In 800 years or 30 generations, it's taken 1 billion people to make each one of us. And apparently there are 8 billion people on the earth. It took 1/8 of the world's population to make each one of us. Now, were we aware of that? But, everything had to be perfect. And then Ida continues, from the infinite past, a life rally baton has passed on. Here now, I live with my baton. This is my life. This is your life. And so what do we do with this life baton? We've been given this life baton. We might call it life energy. What do we do with it? You say, oh, thank you. And, what's the next step? And what I feel is that we serve others. We help others to wake up. And the way we do that is just say, wake up, or would you like to come to our temple to learn how to deal with real life? Not an optimistic, just look at the good, forget the bad. How we engage with whatever happens. It's how we respond to life. We don't pray, hopes and prayers that life goes according to our way, but we respond to that. So that's one thing that is actually true. It's not based on belief, but, just numbers. So one other thing, and I'll make this point, it's really impossible for each one of us to be here when we look at this statistic. Apparently science tells us it takes 10 million sperm to impregnate one ovum. And apparently the distance, because each one is so small, it's about the distance of a marathon. So we can consider that we be 10 million other persons, potential people, over a distance of a marathon. I don't know how many runners there are, but over 10 million other, contestants. And once we hit that egg, here I am. What happens to that second sperm that hits the egg? If there's not another one, no twin. Doors closed. That is our failed twin. Each of us are here. We're number 1 out of 10 million. The next one is a failed twin who will never experience human life. Never experience human life. And the difference of human life is that we are able to wake up. Animals are born all the time, and we're not sure if they have this ability or not, but we know humans have an ability to wake up. The Buddha said, I am awake. And again, this is why I say transpersonal psychologists started studying Buddhism, because it is about consciousness, not just living life, but being awake. Realizing that it took 1 billion people over 800 years to make each one of us. And now I'm saying it's 10 million. So it's impossible to be born as a human being. How are we reminded of that? Is there something in service that reminds us, called the 3 treasures? Difficult, rare, and wondrous is it to be born into human life. Now we are living it. Rare, difficult, and wondrous. I'm making this up. Is it to hear the teachings of the Buddha? Now I hear it. In a way, if we don't resolve this now, when will we do it? We just need to wake up. And so this is what we're saying thank you toward. And again, we're doing this in the context of this galaxy, and this is only one galaxy. And apparently, there are 1 billion stars in the galaxy, and I kind of get that. But then they said there are 1 billion galaxies. Somehow in this vast emptiness, there's compassion. You know, humans care for other humans and other living things. And this is what the Buddha taught us, that we're all interconnected with something that we could call life energy or Amida Buddha, or the compassion of Amida. So we need mythology. Sometimes I like to make clear that, yeah, I'm using science to back up some of these things, but mythology is how we humans understand what can't be understood. You know, it's inexplicable, indescribable, and incomprehensible. But we are now living all that. So this is the depth of Namo Amida Butsu. You know, however we might pronounce that. And so, you know, what else do we do as Shin Buddhists? We really promote this, because why do we have so many memorial services? Yeah, it's all about death. Are you the funeral Buddhism? All our memorial services are not about the people who pass, it's for us. And what we do is we affirm that we're still connected. You know, every month we have a shotsuki for people who died in that month. Obon is annual, and we look at, you know, our 1 billion other ancestors. And then, of course, we have whether it's the 1st, 3rd, 7th, 13th year, and so forth. So we have all these services to remind us, you know, we're still connected. I hear that you die twice. Once when you die physically, and the second time when no one calls your name. You know, we're still calling Shinnan's name 800 years after he's gone. And we're still connected with those who pass. Now, after we pass, you know, our kids may be saying, why go to the gravesite? You know, and why do we do that? Does anyone bring flowers to grave sites or clean them up? You know, why do we do these ancient rituals? Nokotsudo. If you go to the grave sites, often the Buddhist section has flowers in the other sections. So why do we do these rituals? Because we're affirming that we're still connected. You know, the services, and that's why services are important, not just on Sundays, but we have we could have a home altar or Wutsudan. So in the morning and evening, we could remind ourselves, we are connected. We often have pictures of our loved ones, not so much in the altar, but around the Wutsudan or so forth. And so, again, this sect of Buddhism, and I'm not sure about the other sects, but I know in Shin Buddhism, it is about the memorial services. It is about saying we are connected. And although in America, you know, people may have different ideas about this, this is, you know, what I feel Obon is about. You know, and we wonder why it's called the gathering of joy. We're joyful that we had this relationship, that we received this life energy. And that at the funerals, why are the otoki so noisy? Someone just died. Shouldn't we be somber and, be thinking about them? Well, I think they're happy that people are meeting each other after the service and, maybe talking about them memories, but they're meeting each other. This is life energy. So we always have this balance of grief and, joy. And yet we don't have what we call celebration of life, because that seems to ignore the grief. For Buddhists, we acknowledge the sadness, the loss, but it is a balance of the happiness we had with that person for whatever number of years we might have had. So again, these things affirm this whole notion of this life energy, Amida. And hopefully, especially for younger people or people unfamiliar, Amida doesn't have to be just held within a human statue or picture, because again, it may bring on the connotation of a type of deity. And so this thought of energy, people are, aware of that. You can charge up your Tesla or put a battery in a flashlight or something. You put energy in something and then it works. And life energy energizes a baby to become a boy or a child, an adult. And then at passing, what happens to the energy? It disappears. Are there any engineers here? What happens to energy? Does it just disappear? I think energy just, continues in some form. And so I want to close with this, and it's a poem that I think was written in English, but in Japan, it became very popular. And I think it became popular in my sense that it really resonates and is kind of in accord with our thoughts of Buddhism. And so it was made into a song. And I know in San Diego, Reverend Aoyama, who was a retired minister there just before I was there, used to play the harmonica and did, for funerals or for memorial services. And so I want to read the words to this song in Japanese or a poem in English. And it's called A Thousand Breezes, Sen no Kaze. And it says, don't cry, please don't cry before my grave. I am not sleeping there for eternity. Look, I have become 1,000 breezes circling the world, sparkling like diamonds in the clouds, and pouring light on nourishing grains within gentle autumn showers. Look again, I have become 1,000 breezes circling the world. When you wake in the morning, I become a bird flying all around you, and at night, a shining star. You are always enveloped by the innumerable forms of life. So don't cry for me. Don't cry before my grave. I have become 1,000 breezes constantly by your side. And so again, I think that affirms our thought that Amida is this force, life energy. And again, this is Obon season. I think it affirms, it's kind of a happy time, and it holds sadness, especially Hatsubon in the first year. And so I want to kind of have you think in your mind, Obon. I guess most temples here have already experienced that in July. But, as you go, there are lanterns and kids running around and, older people greeting each other. Usually it's very warm, and the taiko drums might be playing or, music. And then you had the Obon dancing. So it's just, these are the 1,000 breezes. This is life energy that goes all around. And this is, for us, the Nembutsu, it affirms life. And we realize that each one of us is impermanent. But I think the settled mind we have is that because we were born, we continue in some form. And it's in this form of 1,000 breezes. And so this is the message we want to pass on, that it's not the body that's so important. It is the spiritual side. And the spiritual side is the side we exchange with each other. And as I said, we exchange it right now as I'm talking. You know, we're not exchanging body parts, you know, as we talk story or engage with each other, even in dancing or sports, it's energy. And so we do that continually. And especially at temple surroundings where we're aware, you know, and this is where, again, our spiritual life is in our ordinary life. And as I was trying to explain to this editor from a Buddhist magazine, you know, why we have these sports for children, educational classes, where she had this thought that, you know, as Buddhists, we should be somber and walk around like monks. For Shin Buddhists, we are ordinary people really enjoying life because of this life spirit, because of Amida Buddha. And so I think what really, again, this is might be stretching things, but you may be familiar with P.J. Hirabayashi's Janaka. Yeah, she developed this about, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago or so. And, you know, as a Bon song and dance. And what she captures in it is the feeling of, let's say, the Issei pioneers as they worked in the mines or the, you know, fields or the fisheries. You know, they would need something to help them persevere. It was a very hard life, the prejudice and all the barriers they had to surmount. And yet they would be, you know, with all this burden, much more than probably each of us has had, they would be yell out, "Ei Janaika." And I think that would be, you know, ain't life grand? I know Reverend Aviko said, isn't life good? But I like the sense of ain't life grand. And I think that's another expression of Nembutsu, ain't life grand. And so I know I'm being very loose as far as some of my interpretation, but I think that's what we want to pass on to younger people, that Nembutsu is saying, you know, Ei Janaika, ain't life grand. So with that, yeah, let's put our hands together and express our deepest expression of gratitude for all the things that we have received. Gasho, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida. So thank you. That kind of concludes what I wanted to present.
I think we have a few minutes for comments and questions. So Warren and Dorothy. Good.
Okay, I just wanted to share just a memory, because you read this poem, this "Do Not Stand at My Grave and Weep." So this should be maybe 20 years ago. It was a junior YBA state convention, and there was a panel. I don't know, Reverend Eric might have been on the panel, Reverend Kevin Kunioki, Reverend Aihiro Naka, and Reverend Murakami. Was it Toshio? Oh. Anyway, I think we should do more of those. The junior YBA could ask the panelists any questions, and they got very, I thought, excellent answers. They asked about bullying, personal relationships, sex. They got very frank answers from the ministers, and so maybe we should do more of this. But somehow the topic got onto this life and death and what happened, and the topic of this poem came up, and the poem "A Thousand Winds," I guess, was and Reverend Kevin Kuniyuki said to Reverend Murakami, "Well, you're trying to explain this. Why don't you just tell them this? Why don't you just tell them about this poem?" And Reverend Murakami just extemporaneously read this poem or shared the poem with the audience without referring to any notes. It was like so impressive. Anyway, and So that was part of the discussion. We talked about this poem and the meaning of the poem. And I just wanted to share that occurrence because really, I still remember that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Not to be, well, negative, but that poem, was that Sen no Kaze ni? The song?
Yes.
Yes, A Thousand Winds.
Mhm.
So the Honganji choir does sing that song. And some people have said, it's such a beautiful song, they would like it at their funeral.
Yeah.
But we also have members at our temple that their mother had been in the choir. So for her funeral, they asked for that song. Sometimes maybe we unwittingly don't realize the minister who is going to do the funeral said that was not a Honganji song. So it was not included in the funeral, that maybe they sang it later. So yeah, I guess it's not a traditional Honganji song, but it's so beautiful. And we enjoy singing it.
Well, I have a comment on that. So I'm wondering who the funeral is for. Like Makura Gyo. You know, should I rush out do we need a minister doing, in a sense, last rites like Konen's time? Do I have, because I got Tokudo and Kyoshi, it's important that I go and chant and help the body meet Amida. I think in Shin Buddhism, no, I don't have that kind of, power. To me, funerals, memorial services are for us, the living, those of us left behind. In San Diego, I would say that, yeah, I don't have that power, and it wasn't important that I be there hours after a person passes. In some hospitals or some places, they have to remove the body. And there may be only a couple people or family members present at the time, and I would do a chant or a thing there. But I would say this is for those of us left behind. And if the next day you have the body at the mortuary and other relatives can come from LA, Gardena, whatever, and you have a dozen people there, it's for the family. And so that's my idea with funerals, because I've had, we've had some similar kinds of things. My brother-in-law passed away, it'd be 30 years ago, maybe. And I'm wondering, is there someone from Honganji looking to see whether we're doing it right? Because and I know my, his mother, my mother were upset at this funeral in 1991 because it had to be a certain way, but it's for the family. And when my son passed away, we changed things. We had a taiko at the beginning, and we changed things because it's for the family to grieve and to have things going their way. This, I think, was determined by Renyo 500 years ago when people lived in a little village, and you did have a service 7, 14, so so many days. So anyway, that's my thought in having people, fortunately our families are very devout, so we stay with the temple, but there are temples. I know there's one family where the father was very prominent in San Jose and he passed away and the minister kind of messed things up. They moved to another temple and the son was president there, yeah. And you have people just disappearing, not coming. So this funerals, I feel, are for those of us who are left behind. And we're assured that Amida, this life force is taken care of. This pure realm. To me, the pure realm, I just feel so assured. And my point tonight was that the fact that we were born under these impossible conditions, that means I made it. We got into the race. Just by getting into the race, we can, go through the finish line. I have some thoughts on chapter 6 of Kyogyo Shinsho, but I won't get into that. It gets a little technical. But I say chapter 6 was written for me. I'm going to the provisional pure realm because I don't have pure Shinjin. But Shinran wrote this thick chapter 6 for me because he says, this guy may not be wholly, all the way there, but there's a path for me. I'm gonna have to sit in a lotus bud for 500 years, but yeah, But anyway, the fact that we were born, these statistics are scientific, they're statistics, they're not belief. And because each of us was born under these conditions, I'm assured of whatever happens afterwards. And that's why I can celebrate with life. And that's what I think we have to pass on. So anyway, thank you for opening that so I can vent my thoughts on funerals. Thanks, Dorothy.
Any other sharing?
So if in that situation, the minister vetoed the use of that song, the Gatha, or a song, I guess it was, what would you recommend that we do to help that minister understand where we're coming from?
I don't know. It depends on the individuals. Yeah, because I've been a part of our board, and I've been had to do some things that were difficult. 4 other presidents before me said I was the selected one because nobody could do something, and so I had to put my family name on the line to make changes. I'll just say that. But anyway, yeah, it's difficult. But this is what I've been pointing out are some of the barriers we have, both in language and thought. And the fact that how many 29-year-olds, 39-year-olds are, someone younger. So again, if I were talking to a group of 40-year-olds, there'd be a different mindset. And I have, and people, and not only younger people, but people with no background, they say, that makes sense, because they don't have this background of how it's supposed to be. And so, yeah, that's, again, I would invite your friends and children, we are the primal vow. We can wait until we die and come back and try to do something, but it's much easier when we have a body and a voice. So that's all I'm saying. Yeah, Dennis.
Yeah, I really appreciate in capital letters, the gift of life. Really made me think something funny. I go back to when I was born. I'm the younger of a twin. Nobody knew my mom was going to have twins. And the midwife just, I guess, had stories from my sisters. The midwife told the doctor, "Oh, there's another one." I'm wondering, gee, maybe something would have happened and I wouldn't be, that miracle of life.
Right.
Yeah. But also in thinking of that, made me think of my parents, my aunties and uncles, and I cannot think thousands and millions of generations, but yeah, I do have a real sense of appreciation that, all of that happened to give me life.
Yeah.
Namandab.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think again, 500 years ago, everyone was concerned with death because it was so common. You look at the early graves of the 1900s and they're these small graves because infants and children died. And but now we've got insurance, we've got all this medical expertise. And so we take life for granted, but there is a miracle of the impossibility of being born a human being with consciousness that could wake up. And I think that's what Buddhism is about, waking up, realizing what we have. And it's based on observable things that happen on Earth. So that's where our beliefs are based on.
When you held up the picture of the galaxy,
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we were kids, my mother was always looking at the sky, especially at night. And we used to hate this. She used to wake us up. She goes, wake up, you got to go out and see. There's something special. You know, we're, no. She said, no, you have to get up. So my brothers and I would be brought in the backyard, and this is the country, so it's like
Oh,
when
yeah.
there's no extra light, you know. I mean, you can see the stars. And she goes, look at that light. You know, there's something interesting in the sky. And she would make us sit on the grass. And it was all dew. It was wet and cold, you know, and we'd be there like this, you know, going, can we go now? You know? And she goes, no, you have to wait. You have to look, you know? And then she'd start talking and anyway, she would shush us up and we would have to look. And then after then I don't know what she said, but we were like, oh my God, we're just a speck, we're nothing. And she looked at us and I didn't remember this, but she said, oh, you were so lucky, you know? And I guess we got out of that we're so special, you know, and we could experience this together. But anyway, I remember we always grown, moms are getting us up again. We have to go outside, look at the sky. But some of it was really interesting. It was like a streak or a light or something, you know, but she was always like that.
She
So-
knew, I think what we're talking about is things that are what we might call noetic. Like the Buddha and masters, there's a knowing. It's not, knowledge, but there's just the knowing. And this is what this whole area of spirituality is about. And that's why we can't get stuck on words or even meaning, that there's just the knowing that some things are. And that's why I say experience is, should be valued over understanding. Understanding is just, an idea. But doing something, having an experience is kind of a knowing. And I think that's why Buddhism has a practice. And our practice is Namo Amida Butsu, I'm one with this life energy. And thank you for that. So your mother, I think, had that knowing, without, studying about stars. Yeah. She knew.
Any comments from Zoom land? Last chance. I was hoping Pete would say something. So Pete Doctor, as a historical soul of the local Okinawan community, Jikkoen Honganji routinely incorporates Uchi Naguchi Okinawa language in Dharma messaging to learn and apply the Dharma. For instance, Nuchi Dutakara, life energy is our treasure, is a proverb we often evoke. By the way, Gua is an often used Okinawan phonetic sound, a pre-Japan language. It feels good to embrace this Romanized ancient term. We breathe renewed life energy. My Okan-san's singing group sang Sen no Kaze at her funeral at the Orange County Buddhist Church. Sensei Harada only gave praise for our program. And Obon, our Day of the Dead, is actually a celebration of life, an intergenerational dance between the living and the lived.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Yeah, I think I make a point at our bone dance when I give these tours to visitors to explain what bone dance is that most Buddhist traditions kind of celebrate the afterlife and the ancestors returning, but in Shin Buddhism we don't do that because they're already here. They never leave and come back and that sort of thing. So and that is unique to Shin Buddhist teachings. That's the primal vow. All beings being saved and they come back, right? So I think it's important that we try to take the opportunity to set people on the Shin path during these general Buddhist occasions. So if we're done with questions, Steve.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I don't have a question, but I wanna do something fast in appreciation of Reverend Akahoshi, making the emphasis about the importance of Nembutsu tied in with gratitude and appreciation. So this is an appreciation of you,
Thank you.
reminding me about appreciation. So I'm a Bongu, so it's like, I'm a Bongu, so a lot of times I feel like this. Yeah, because I forget. But then everybody can see. Look like me, right? Yeah. But when I remember, oh, you didn't, did you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah. When I remember to say Nembutsu, at least 3 times, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Then look what happens. I feel so much better. Thank you. I didn't know, I didn't come Monday, Tuesday, I was on Zoom, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I didn't know how many people, but I did bring 10 copies. It's really easy. If you want to share with whoever you want to share with, you can do this, really easy. So come see me, I got 10 copies.
Thank you, Steve. And since we're into thank yous, I think the bishop would like to show some appreciation to Reverend Akahoshi.
Okay, thank you, Dexter. Well, Akahoshi Sensei, Reverend Akahoshi, on behalf of the ministers and members of the Hawaii Kyodan, I really thank you very much for giving us the wonderful presentation throughout this week. We really enjoyed his presentation. So, arigatou gozaimasu. Thank you very much. And I understand that your the Dharma tour has just begun. So I wish you to enjoy each session at each district you visit, and I'm pretty sure that the people at the district will also enjoy your presentation. So once again, 本当にありがとうございました. Thank you very much. And this is just a little gift from the Hawaii Kyodan. So thank you very much, Sensei.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, and we'd also like to thank the summer session crew, Carolyn Uchiyama, Derek Inouye, Dave Atchison, the bishop, Reverend Papa. It's a long week, but it took months, to prepare things, and we hope that you find it a kind of rewarding opportunity. Before we start to clean up the room and put the tables away, we'd like to take a photo. We'd like to have something in the archives for the 50th annual summer session, so that in 50 years from now, the next archivist will be able to find it and put it into whatever internet kind of thing exists in 50 years. Probably a hologram or something, right? Yeah. Thank you again for attending, and we hope to see you again next year.